What is happening, guys? Welcome back to the Bucher Best Boys podcast. Before we get into it, we have a special guest here tonight.
You said it. Today we do have a really special guest. You've clicked on the link, so you probably saw who it was. But I think you'll still see some surprises because this is a man with a lot of studs. This is a man who once put out a sparkler in ways that we cannot describe.
This is a man who, when you go to the Facebook group for this league, is shirtless in the library at UMBC.
Let me know what you think. Can you please bully my league mate, Sparky Mark, on the pod? He's been offering me trades all year that are dingus ones and all his scrubs for my stars. He needs to be shamed. I love you, Nick.
Well, Nick, you got to tell us what it is. I mean, first off, Sparky Marky, punch yourself in the face. That's what I would ask you to do.
He is the only guy in this league who has somehow never been better than his dad at this.
I mean, first off, Sparky Marky, punch yourself in the face.
Yep, following the footsteps of giants.
This is the man who one time ate 16 Hot Pockets between 6 p.m. and midnight before going out to the bars. What a crazy thing he did.
I'm having fun.
Sparky Marky, punch yourself in the face. Punch yourself in the face. Punch, 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 punch.
I'm having fun.
This is a man who I have a feeling might literally like Jesus Luzardo more than he likes Christian Javier. Just a hunch.
Why?
Hot take there. What is happening? Welcome back to the Bucher's Badge of Boys podcast with me, your host, Nick Bucher, my lovely co-host, Jared Kyle Jordan, and we have another guest host this week. Welcome to the pod, Sparky Marky.
Glad to be here, boys.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, dude. We're excited to have you come in here. You got big shoes to fill. Roman's been on. He crushed it. Dom's been on. He has had people writing back, trying to get him on again. So I'm excited to see what you can bring to the table here. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think, tonight. We have a lot we're going to talk about. It's been 2 weeks since we've been on, but we're excited to break it down. So I think let's start. There have been a lot of trades. This is the last time we talked trades. Let's just break down everything that's moved. There's been a lot of big trades.
Yeah, sure. So I think the last trades we talked about were from the 14th. So right now I'm just scrolling through. But top of mind, I think the last one was my trade with Alex Manoah. I received Alex Manoah and I sent away Sonny Gray and Patrick Wisdom. Yeah.
And thank you for pulling that up. Mine's loading as we speak. Why don't you, since it was a trade you were in, why don't you go first? Just tell us sort of, because it happened a little bit ago now. Do you still feel good about it? Obviously, I think Manoah had his best start as soon as you made the trade. So that's a pretty great situation for you there. But how do you feel? Right.
Yeah, so immediately after buying him, he had a good start. I think actually yesterday, we're currently recording on April 30th. He had a not so good start. I mean, I think he only made it through 5 innings. I actually watched a good bit of the game, and I actually think he did worse than the stats say. If you just look at the game log, I'm still really happy with it, honestly. The only downside is I think that Sonny Gray is still performing at a really high level. The only thing that sticks out to me is just from a fundamentals standpoint, when I like to look at Savant or that type of stuff, Sonny Gray's spin rate is pretty elite on the fastball. Pretty much everything else, I don't know, not really anything sticking out to me. But one reason why I wanted to sell Sonny Gray was just that elite spin rate isn't really out of touch with previous years from him. I think he had a really good 2020 year, I believe, when he was with the Reds. But I don't know. I just don't necessarily believe he'll continue playing at this level. He has his ERA is under 1 right now. His expected ERA is like 2.5 or like maybe 2.7, something like that. So, we'll see. I'm still really happy with the trade just because Manoah, I think, is the best keeper value. I do believe he's still a top 100 keeper player in fantasy baseball. Depending on, what sites you like to look at, some people still have him in the top 50. I'm probably not quite that high on him, but we'll see. Hopefully Manoah just loses a few LBs and keeps, this momentum moving.
I think being on the same team as Vlad and Alejandro Kirk has made him really unlikely to do that, but it's possible. Yeah. Mark, since your dad was involved in this trade, what do you think?
Yeah, no, when I first saw this trade, I was kind of shocked that, one, my dad was being a part of it. Kyle, I'm curious, did you communicate at all with him before making the trade?
They use Kick.
Yeah, kick me, please.
Yeah, I know he can be a bit of a wild card in terms of getting the line of communication open. Yeah, I know kind of kicking myself. I know when we were doing our Rasmussen Stanton trade, you had offered me Gray after that strikeout game in Houston, and I kind of turned my nose up at him and said, "Nah, I don't think he's there. I don't think he's the real deal," and he's been elite so far. But I think just backing up what you said, you got the best player in the deal and the best keeper value, which kind of surprised me, but not too much to add based on what you said.
I actually have a slightly different opinion. I think I'm a little bit lower on Manoah. I think it came out when we were talking about some of the previous would you rathers. I think I do agree before I say anything else that Manoah is the best player in the trade. So it's hard to not feel good about a trade when you're getting the best player involved. But Sonny Gray, if you take away the year he played with the Yankees, I'm looking at it right now because I don't want to talk out of turn here. That year he had a whip that was basically 1.5 and his ERA was 4.9. That sucks. Yep. But besides that, he is not since his rookie year, which was over a decade ago now almost. He has never had an ERA. He's had one ERA of 4.19, nothing else over 3.8. He's never had a whip higher than 1.25. So I think it is partially just that we have the bias of seeing him fail in New York that one year. Yep. And he wasn't great one of the years with the Reds. I think he's probably like closer to 80% of Manoah than it sounds like maybe you guys do, or maybe you agree with that, but I think that's probably the case there. I would still make the trade, but I don't want us to gloss entirely over Patrick Wisdom either, who is tied for second in baseball with 10 home runs. I mean, he's not going to probably be amazing, but that's not nothing. Or, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you kind of out him, Kyle? Is that what you want to get rid of him? Do you think he is the power there? Is he Max Muncy light type guy? What is he?
I picked him up from the waiver, and my goal was to play him. Hopefully, I was just crossing my fingers he'd hit a hot streak. He did. I think there was maybe 5 days he had home runs, 5 days in a row. He had 2 homers in one day. So I picked up all of those accounting stats, and my goal was just try to treat him like an asset, try to just sell him right now. And so I just tried to package him in some sort of deal. I was honestly just hoping to kind of break even on a deal. My goal in playing fantasy, often when I pick up a player like that, I like to try to turn them into something else by selling them high. So, I was willing to actually lose the trade as long as I was picking up value from, the waiver. And so I think I achieved that. But yeah, I definitely see your point. Like, he could be Max Muncy light this year. There are actually a few things he's doing. It looks like he's maybe making better contact this year. So, who knows?
He's hitting the ball hard. He's probably going to hit like 30 home runs, but I think he probably hits like 215, 220 if he plays all year.
I mean, his strikeout numbers starting to go up. And so I think that's always what happens, but you never know.
Yeah. I just want to make sure we didn't forget to mention him is all. Again, I think if I were you, I'd make the trade too. I'm just a little bit cooler than it sounds like you guys are on it. Let's move on though. The next one is another really pretty big one here. Zach Wheeler, Nathaniel Lowe moved from Team Mizzigman in exchange for Brian Reynolds and Spencer Torkelson. And noteworthy here, I'll let you guys give your takes on it first, but Torkelson is no longer on Team Miz, so he Trace Thompsoned him in the same way.
That was the whole the whole fee that we were talking about. So I wasn't part of that trade. So now I have Torkelson.
You absorbed Torkelson. That makes sense. And although Torkelson's the young former top prospect, Nate Lowe is a prospect also. And I think he's actually as capable or more capable than Torkelson and been better in his career so far. So I don't even know if you're necessarily building for the future with this, Mizzigman. But before I give anything else on it, what do you guys think? Are you 50-50 here? Do you think it's a fair trade? Is there a lean one way you'd have?
Mark, you want to hit it?
Mark, you hit it because the guy who made the trade is also named Mark.
Yeah, one Mark to another.
Yeah, I think I would lean towards McTaggart's side. I know Brian Reynolds has been, a top 5 hitter, if not a top 3 hitter so far this year, and he's been elite in Pittsburgh, and they're off to an amazing start.
Yeah, they are.
In the NL at one point this weekend, took 2 of the 3 from the Dodgers. So it's a fun story, but as someone who's owned him in the past, those counting stats usually aren't there. I know he just got the big extension that he's been looking for, so maybe he's happy. Maybe, he keeps it up as tearing the cover off the ball, but it's hard to see that continuing. And Wheeler is an elite pitcher, which I think it's really hard to get those elite guys in our league. He's at least a top 25 guy, in my opinion, pitcher-wise, with decent keeper value, depending on where your team's at. But, and to your point, Lowe, better than Torkelson and better keeper value. And I don't really understand the dropping of Torkelson after paying the troll toll for Kyle.
Kyle's probably right. That was taxes.
Yeah. So I know, I would lean towards McTaggart, the rich get richer, but that's my take on it. Haven't really done the deep dive on anyone involved. So that's just surface level opinions. So Nick.
Yeah. You jackasses trading with McTaggart need to stop it, as probably his only contention or his only current, like, within 20 points in the stand. He's just blowing us away right now. That's got to stop. Griffin did this a couple weeks ago. Michigan's trying to do it now. I don't know why we were all McTaggart fanboys. We got to stop this.
Yeah.
Kyle, do you agree? Do you disagree?
I'll go out on a limb and say I actually think Reynolds is the best player in the trade. I am partial to trading for hitters, get the hitter value if you can somehow sell away, pitcher value. But to be honest, I completely agree with Mark. Mostly just due to the fact that Brian Reynolds is $29, so he's pretty expensive. I think the story would be quite different if he were, in the low single digits, or even like a $10, $12 keeper. But he's not, and so is he keepable this year? I think definitely I would keep him. But it's not like a huge bargain. And then the other problem is Nate Lowe is a top 75 player, maybe, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah.
He's not just like a throwaway. So you got two players in Wheeler and Lowe, both keepable, both elite. And then the other guy that you're getting, Torkelson, like I think from Misigman's perspective, like if he loved Torkelson and he sees something and he's like, you know what, let's go get him. I think this trade would be kind of 50-50. But the fact that he clearly didn't like Torkelson because he cut him, I was pretty confused about that. So I would give Brendan the A+ on this one.
Yeah, we're all in agreement. I won't even need to add anything to it because I think I agree exactly. Let's move on to the next one. Because it was a busy little stretch here. Not even a full day later, Roman got involved. Shout out Roman. This is me and Roman's trade here, so I'll let each of you speak and then I'll tell you if I disagree. But obviously, I liked it. To make it, I gave up Jordan Walker and Dre Jameson and received Joe Ryan and Eloy Jimenez.
Okay, yeah,
Mark,
I can.
Do you hate it?
Actually, I like it for both teams. Joe Ryan he was elite, not quite elite, but he was a very good starting pitcher last year. And he's been, I think, as of this recording, he's a top 10 fantasy pitcher right now. And that fastball the velocity's up. It's been incredibly hard to hit. He's striking guys out left and right.
He is.
Tyler, you laughing? Went into New York last week and struck out 10 or so. I'm believing in it. $9 keeper too. I know you're focused more on the now, but can't get mad about that. Selfishly, I love that you got Eloy because coming up here in a few trades, we get to talk about what we did. But Jordan Walker was the darling of the all season, started off on a 12-game hitting streak. Wasn't really hitting for power, didn't have those county stats, but I think the tools are there. I think he can be an incredibly useful fantasy asset. It's just playing in St. Louis. They have so many guys between Tommy Edman, Brendan Donovan, Yepes, who's in the minors now himself, Carlson,
O'Neill,
who the man really hates, Burleson. It's just they can mix and match, ride the hot bat, and if he's not producing, it's more like a soft analysis just from a general baseball point. Not to derail the conversation, but do you guys think it's interesting they brought him up and then sent him down within the first 2 weeks?
Who are you talking about? Walker?
Jordan Walker. Do you think there's service time manipulation? Do you think it's just he wasn't producing and St. Louis has, serious contender aspirations this year?
I think it's fairly disingenuous, in all honesty, that they would tweet out the video of him getting the call. They would tweet out I think the most tweet they have in all of April is him getting the ball back after his first home run. And look, he wasn't producing incredibly well. He was playing at around a 100 WRC plus. He was playing at an average big league hitter level. Mm-hmm. They, like Mark said, they have a huge logjam. That's the reason I made this trade prior to him being demoted, actually, as I was concerned. Even though when he was playing most days, he was hitting 7th or 8th. Mm-hmm. And I was worried there's the chance he could stop playing every day. I imagine this is probably service time manipulation. I think there's something to be said. Probably they saw James Outman breaking out alongside Corbin Carroll. So there's a good chance, even if Walker played every day or 2 days out of every 3 the rest of the way, he's not likely to finish top 2 in Rookie of the Year voting, which means now you can get that extra year service time. If you keep him down for 3 weeks and bring him back up. I think this is probably service time manipulation in some ways. And there's also there is something to be said too for the fact they may also just be trying to make sure he gets every day at bats. You can legitimately say that isn't a reason. It's probably a little bit of both. I think I'm cynical. But he'll probably back up when someone gets hurt, or Tyler O'Neill is probably going to get traded, I think, in the next month anyway.
Yeah, but taking it back to the fantasy aspect and just rounding out the players here, I know Dre Jameson, he's not the darling Brandon Pfaadt of the young Diamondback pitchers, but he had a pretty solid spring. I know he's gotten roughed up in a few of his outings. He's been coming out of the bullpen. He's been a spot starter, but I think the talent is there. And, just looking at the standings this year, like we were talking about before, the jump from last all the way up to first is going to be incredibly difficult to make in a year like this. So why not try and take flyers on this guy? There's cheap young guys who could turn into something next year. So I think it's a win-win for both teams. Everyone involved gets an A, however you want to rate it. That's just my take though.
Kyle, do you agree? Do I get an A?
Yeah, I mean, pretty clear. Like it's selling this year, so makes sense in the position. I agree with Mark, and I mean Nick alluded to this, but pretty uncanny. If you check out the trade right now, both of the guys on Roman's side, they have those 2 green flags. So you time that one.
Neither one was green when we traded.
Yeah. So
that's really unlucky. There's no way I would know that. Yeah.
I know, but I agree with you guys completely on the Walker takes. Like that, admittedly, like a little bit of a blind spot on my end in terms of service time and all that crap. But it doesn't seem like a real sensible move in terms of just real baseball. He was hitting the ball into the ground a lot, but I mean
negative launch angle.
Yeah, I mean
Vlad Jr. of his rookie year, I think. Yeah, he'll be back soon. He'll rake.
Walker will be a beast. And we talk about it a lot. Like the other thing is just Walker, he's an old man at heart. So
he is already like Benjamin Button kind of.
Yeah.
And this is not a bit. If you look at a photo of Jordan Walker, you know how Albert Pujols like lied about his age? Jordan Walker is actually like 45 years old. It doesn't make any sense that he looks the way he looks.
It's disturbing. Like you'll click on him and you're like, oh wait, I must have clicked on the wrong Jordan Walker. I guess there's another one.
Why did his dad take this photo? Yeah. So it is pretty bizarre.
I won't blame
yourself on the back, Nick. Good job.
Yeah. It's a good trade for both of you.
So obviously, just to wrap it up too, the only thing I want to add is, of course, I had no idea within a couple of days they both get optioned down. I feel bad for him that happened because he is trying to obviously still contend in some ways this year. That's unfortunate. I think that they both probably are back soon. With Jameson though, specifically, even before he was optioned, it's so disappointing to me for this year because I think Jameson's actually really fucking good. And he was really good early this year prior to having to be a starter. And when he's less good as a starter, not stretched out, going 4 innings and wasting my game started and having to carry him in between, that's useless for this year. Whereas when he was coming out of the bullpen for 2 and 3 and 4 inning relief appearances, either behind an opener or in the 4th inning getting holds and or wins, that was so much more valuable. And he was so much better at that. Yeah. So I think he's going to be good long-term is what I'm trying to get to here. But I do think, like you both said about the future for Roman, who's not as keen right now trying to contend, it's a better thing because I can't afford to carry him for weeks while he builds his pitch count up, even if he stayed in the big leagues, and Roman can.
Exactly. Yeah. We talked about that before, Nick. Like that's the one little secret. Jameson, if they continue using him like they did at the start of the year, he's a little
so useful.
He's a cheat code because I was going to try to trade for him when he was doing that. I mean, we chatted about that, but it's like with the 200 start limit, he was just coming in and eating innings and just, also hold opportunities.
And he was doing well in them too. He's so much worse as a starter. He's not, I don't think he was ready to do it this year yet.
Agreed. Yeah. So maybe he continues that role.
But the same way Jordan Walker wasn't ready to hit the ball in the air yet. I do believe, again, you think about guys who put together good prospects. It's not linear. Like Jerry Jameson in 2 years will be a good starter, I think. And in 2 years, Jordan Walker will probably do what Vlad Jr. didn't, or Vlad Light, and we'll start hitting the ball in the air. It's just that I'm less in right now on both of them this year. All right, let's move on. That's enough about me. Let's move on again, though, to Missigman doubling down. And now he's trading with Mark's dad. This is a battle of the boomers trading because they're both I think, how old your dad, Mark? Is 55?
No, my dad's in his 60s.
Okay, Mark Missigman, I think, is almost 50. So they're both old. I don't even know how they know. I don't even know how they talk to each other, actually. I have no idea how they. Because Mark Missigman, I text with him. He does not, I don't think, use the messaging on this. I don't know how he's communicating with your dad at all.
I can maybe shed some light on that. I know I joked on your trade with him, Kyle, that you guys were, old pals talking on the phone. My dad texted me on that trade took place on.
Did he call Mark Missigman?
No, he didn't call him, but that trade took place on Thursday night or early.
I think you're right. Yeah, it was
processed
I think it was in the morning.
Yeah, 4:45 a.m. So that's probably when my dad woke up and checked that morning. But he texted me at 10 a.m. that morning and said
he was up late thinking about making moves. He was staying up late in his feelings trading LeMahieu.
Verbatim, why did Team Miz want DJ LeMahieu so bad? He offered 3 trades in 5 minutes last night. So I don't think that there's any communication.
There is
Mr. needs to assemble the Yankees. He's just desperately.
He is a Yankees homer. He's a huge Yankees guy. And he probably, though, I was just talking about Mark's dad. There's another chance Missingman was just like drinking with one of his buddies and like, I love LeMahieu's game. I need to get LeMahieu at all costs.
That's where I was going with it. I
think that might be what happened here.
Thursday night had a few and really wanted.
I need to text him and ask.
I mean,
and the move, by the way, too. I didn't say the move when I brought this up. Sorry to interrupt you, but just the move was DJ LeMahieu for Andrew Benintendi and Patrick Sandoval. Sorry, Mark. Please continue.
No, not too much to offer on this. I don't think it makes either one a contender for this year. I mean, LeMahieu and Benintendi are kind of not one and the same, but I think
they're the same tier.
Yeah, I like Benintendi more, but that's just also because I've got a soft spot for him over the last couple of years. I've owned him a couple of times. LeMahieu's getting older. It's good to hit in the Yankees lineup, but if you're not hitting at the top of it, and Sandoval, I think just pushes the value over for my dad's side of the trade. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting that these two found a way to make a deal. That's
a testament to this league. I love this league for being this active. Yeah, I think you're right, Mark. I think they're all like between player 110 and player 160. Yeah. Like they're all like, depending how you feel, like a 13th round pick. Mm-hmm. So it's weird that Missman gave up 2 of them. Your dad comes out on top here, I think, but yeah, I don't think it moves the needle too much either way. What do you think, Kyle? Do you disagree? Do you agree?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think it was an interesting trade. I'm not a huge LeMahieu fan. I think I actually like Sandoval a little bit more than most people do. So I think Jack takes this one pretty handedly.
Yeah. Sounds like we all kind of agree there.
Yep.
Next up, you've got me and Griffin. So Griffin takes from me Austin Riley and James Wood, and he gives me Shane McClanahan and Teoscar Hernandez. I liked it. I still think it's pretty solid. Hasn't been that long. Not that much has changed. What do you guys think?
Yeah, so Griffin, just a reminder, so since you traded with Nick, you don't have to drop the player for me. It's only if you trade with another.
You did forget that tip,
mate.
Yeah.
So just next time around, if you do another trade with Nick, you can keep the guys that you get.
And Kyle, you don't have to say Griffin won the trade if you don't believe that.
I think, as an aside, I think you guys need to be a little bit nicer to Griffin. Him and I were texting back and forth this week. I think
every week Kyle is like globbering over Griffin.
I think that there's been some anti-Griffin propaganda on this podcast, and I just want him to know that I'm waving the flag in his honor this week.
Okay, I'll report that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think that's all the time we have. So I'll talk to you guys.
Refer to you for analysis on this one here to start. I'm sure Nick thinks he won this.
I don't think I won it necessarily. I think I like my side a little bit better though.
Yeah, I know Griffin was shopping McClanahan a little bit, and
not really sure why.
Yeah, I think like now Nick has the top 2 pitchers in terms of dynasty value in Strider and McClanahan, and they're both like under $15. I mean, are they both under $10, Nick? Can you
Strider is going to be to keep this year and next year 11, and McClanahan I think is 9, so he'll be 14.
Jeez. Yeah, so that's
Ryan's also 9, so he'll be pretty cheap as my 3.
Like, it's kind of rare to find a trade where Austin Riley is being sold, and I actually think that you still won the trade, but I think you somehow did it here. Again,
I think they're in the same tier for this year, and they're also both keepable.
We need to give Teoscar the award of like the year's most popular man. Like, he will be on more than 50% of the I guess the teams before this year is over. Like, yeah, he's just he's a real Amtrak. But
yes, he is on the Amtrak.
But to be honest, like I don't really get the value of Teoscar. He's been sold a lot, and I feel like people don't really like him just based off of the trades that I've seen in our league. I think maybe I'm just way higher on him than a lot of other guys. Same with McClanahan. Austin Riley is a beast. He's one of my favorite hitters in all of baseball. We talked about that before. So I mean, we're talking it like this is a huge trade. I can't necessarily say that it's really bad for Griffin. Riley is going to be a cornerstone for him for some time, but yeah, like there is a part of me, I like selling pitchers for the top end hitters, and I think Riley is definitely the best hitter of this group. I just think that the trade wasn't really 100% even there. I do think Nick won this one.
Teoscar is fairly capable too. I don't know if you remember, Kyle. It was one of our solo ones. We did a pod earlier this year where we pitted some guys, Dom French's team on the top next year for home runs and steals. Teoscar runs some, he hits some dongs. I mean, he's a very streaky guy, but he has been very good each of the last like 3 or 4 years, and he's like under $20 to keep. So I am surprised. I don't believe in him aging super well with the skill set, but I think he's probably got a year or two after this. I can still keep him maybe for and even just for this year, that keeper value involved, because Riley's keepable and a cornerstone player. He is probably the best value or the most valuable player in. But I really do think him and McClanahan are in the same tier. Like there are plenty of scenarios, in my opinion, where McClanahan ends up being not even just dynasty, but like a redraft SP1, like the SP1 next year.
Well, and we talked about this a lot, especially earlier on in the pod, just with the rules in this league, to have those cheap top dog pitchers. Like you now have 2 in the same tier. Like they're kind of
mortgaging my Bren Klobs and I'm adding top dogs. I am.
So now you just have the ability to move all of your budget into buying $90 Trout next year, or whatever you want to do. So yeah, it works out for you on that.
We've got about 3.5 minutes here before we have to jump. So let's start with the next one. If we're not quite through it, we'll bring it back to the commercial break on the next one. This next one, there was a fun one. It's me and Mark. So this is Mark gives me George Springer and Isaac Paredes, and I give Mark Eloy Jimenez after like 4 days of owning him, and Steven Wilson of the Padres. And that makes it sound like I hate Eloy Jimenez. I actually don't hate Eloy Jimenez. I'm just saying I only had him for like a week. Kyle, since you're not involved, what do you think? Because me and Mark obviously have opinions, I feel like.
Yeah, so to me, it's pretty clear. I like Springer a lot. I think Eloy, it's not close. I think Eloy is the best keeper by far in this trade. So to me, like Paredes and Wilson to me are kind of throwaways. Like just I don't think they factor too much into the trade. That's just my opinion. And I think, Mark, like things could definitely shift for you, but I think this is similar to what we were talking about before in terms of just buying for next year. Eloy is keepable. He's in the low 20s right now. So I think it makes a lot of sense for both of you. I don't think there's a clear winner. I think Springer is, really underperforming right now. So, did you get out of that and maybe he keeps declining? I don't know. It could have been a great trade for Mark. On the flip side, Springer could turn around, but then even if he does, who knows, will that be enough for Mark? And so I think Eloy was a great guy to get, who's kind of been injured. Maybe this is his year. He turns it around and he could be a top, 40 player. So that's definitely in the range of outcomes.
Yeah. Mark, why don't you go? You're the guest.
Yeah, no, I mean, Kyle, I think you hit it perfectly. I love your optimism in me and my team this year, but I'm waving the white flag. It's not happening this year. I'm in 11th place.
Can we cut that, Kyle, and save that clip? Just timestamp that. It's 39 minutes in.
That'll be the intro.
Paredes and Wilson were throwaways.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to cut him. Do you want him instead? So basically came down to Springer.
Paredes was because Muncy was on paternity, by the way. Also, I don't love Paredes that much. I think he's more valuable than Wilson slightly, but like it's just that one infielder.
Yeah, Springer $41 would have been $46 next year.
Not keepable.
The way I was rolling the dice on that, and to your point, kind of like Nick just touched on with Hernandez, that skill set doesn't age super well. I know he's got 5 stolen bases already, but he's not running. He's still hitting for power, but I don't think he's running the way he was in Houston when he first came up. So Eloy, stay healthy, figure it all out, and hopefully build a building block for next year. That's what it came down to.
We've got like 30 seconds, so just my take before we end it is, if we cut out, sorry. I agree with Mark exactly. I think Springer is a tier and a half ahead of Eloy for right now. I think there's a good chance they could be similar. There's a good chance Springer could be slightly better. And I'm just trying to buy. Mark's trying to buy for next year. He made the move.
Cool. Well, let's get a quick word from our sponsors.
Raymond's here, by the way.
Let's get a quick word from Raymond.
Raymond, what do you think?
Send us to commercial. Charleston Bombers have a really good...
Something?
We talked about it. I got another 10 years left.
Not that. This is big. What do you think?
I'm in. Let's call everyone.
Hey, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm in. I'm in.
I'm in. I'm in.
This guy. First, even if you wanted to come back, we wouldn't take you.
Yes, you would.
Yeah, we would.
You're right, we would. What's up?
I'm getting into crypto with FTX. You in?
I believe I'm in, but still hate you.
So we just wrapped before that commercial there where Raymond sold Raymond things to you. We just wrapped with me and Mark's trade. The final trade we're going to cover today is another blockbuster, also a Team Missigman, when he's up late in his feelings. He traded for Bo Bichette and gave Zach Straley, shout out Zach, Bobby Witt Jr., and Justin Turner. Mark, as a historically big Bobby Witt guy, what do you think here?
That's news to me, but all right. I do love Bobby Witt. You know, I know he started out slow last year, but the tools are there. Did he go 20-30 last year?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and I think that potential with his skill set, that potential is there every year for the next 10 years if he stays healthy and continues to develop the way everyone projects him to. I know that he's $18 this year, or looking at it, he might be $18 next year.
He's cheap.
Bichette was off to an amazing tear to start the year, but has cooled down. And I know you went into a long discussion about him when you had Dom on, I believe, with the Would You Rather or something, but he has for power, not tremendous plate discipline. I think 1 for 1, I want Witt, and I don't think it's pretty close. Just in my,
so you are a Witt guy then. I wasn't wrong. Why did you say you weren't?
It was news to me. It just
fair.
No, I think just in terms of a roto player, I think Witt is way more valuable in terms of the way our league is set up. I think for $18, he legitimately top 20 hitter with the speed and the power potential. And this time next year, we could be talking about someone who's 30-40 potential, and with, you know, the new rule changes allowing bigger bases, you know, fewer pickoff moves. That's my take.
What are the odds that, sorry to like jump in there, but you're right, dude. We did talk about him. What are the odds we're recording the night of April 30th? Tomorrow's May 1st. Bo Bichette has no stolen bases in the first month of the year when it's easier to steal than ever before. On his same team, Vlad Jr. has 2 more steals than him. I think Bichette gets back to it, obviously. I'm not saying he's 25. He's not going to stop running, but it's fascinating.
Does Bo Bichette, is it like bad sprint speed? Like, admittedly, I've not.
He's been caught twice. It's just, I think he's had a weird low amount of time. Maybe he's had a bunch of times he's on base where he's not, there's someone in front of him, like clogging the base ahead of him. I don't know. But it seems like just a small sample size to me personally still. I think, Kyle, am I remembering this wrong? I think we had Dom on, was it him versus Wander Franco?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that the one? And I think I was the only one who took Bo, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And we all agreed it was close. I'm not trying to say you like love Wander so much more. I'm just trying to remember if I had that right. I still think I'd prefer Bo to him. But I think Bobby Witt is probably right there or ahead of Bo anyway right now. Bo's in the better lineup. Bo is very capable too. And he's been better recently. I know Witt was good last year, but we've seen a couple years of Bichette being very valuable in this format. So I don't think he's going to be bad. He's been good anyway without the steals so far. It's just so fascinating to see the no steals.
Just to jump in back to real quick, to defend the Bo Bichette part of it, the lineup, I think, does help.
So much better.
You know, Kansas City's bad, and I don't foresee Kansas City being good next year or probably even the year after that. You know, ever is a stretch, but yeah. So I don't completely hate it, but if I had been Team Miz with that $18 Witt on my team, it would have taken, you know, a McClanahan and Teoscar type deal to even get me to consider moving him. And that was just it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Bo costs, just because I can't see it's loading slowly.
21, I believe.
21.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I mean, he's very capable too. I don't think it's. I was gonna say, I think Mark said this already. I think they are basically 1 for 1 pretty fair. But getting a free Justin Turner is plenty useful.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like I think I like Bo a good bit more. And just to recap quickly, they're basically the same cost: $21 for a 25-year-old Bo, $18 for a 22-year-old Witt. So it's a $3 difference. Like, I don't know, like Witt, I think
neither one walks really either.
Yeah. I think like everything that you said is right. And I think it's definitely really close. I don't have a strong feeling about it, but honestly, if I had to pick to be on one side of the trade, I would probably want Bichette. That's just me. So I feel like if you look at all the fundamentals this year, like Bichette is, I think, still having a great year. Until proven otherwise, I chalk up the whole stolen base issue or lack thereof as just kind of random.
Yep.
I think it will correct. I think he'll end with probably more than 20 stolen bases, if I had to guess. I don't know. I think he's still the same player. And in terms of what he's doing, hitting, he's
crushing it anyway.
Having a fantastic year. So
I think it's
we'll
pretty
see.
fair.
I think Mark brought up a great point. Most of it for me is lineup. Like all the accounting stats, like Bo's just going to do better because he's in Toronto.
Yeah.
That's just me.
No, I think we all mostly agree that it's or maybe not that. I think it's a defensive trade on both sides, right?
Yeah.
Because I think you could make a case that I would maybe make more than it sounds like you would, Kyle, that it's a side where I might actually prefer the Witt and Turner side, just because on the margin, the few bucks you save with Witt is great, even if you do Bichette's a little bit safer. We've seen him do it more often. But I think just it probably comes down to what you think of Turner, right? Like if you think Turner's useful in any way, I think that makes me like that side slightly as much or a little bit more. But if you think he's like Isak Paredes or Stephen Wilson, you probably don't care as much.
You're right. Yeah. And for me, he's a little bit closer to that. I think he's a little bit closer to a throwaway. So maybe we differ a little bit there.
That's probably exactly what we're saying. Then you probably lean that way. I lean the other way. Just I think he's useful. And you probably think he's more just like a guy you can stream.
Totally.
Mark, who's right?
Neither one.
You're the Bobby Witt guy. You already said I'm right, right?
Yeah, big Bobby Witt over here. We got big Bobby Witt.
I mean,
Bobby Marky.
It's defensible on both sides. Like I think I want the Witt side.
Yeah, Kyle, get that.
That's what I wanted to say. I know Bichette got off to and I'm pretty sure I already said this, got off to the torrid start this year. Witt, slow starter last year, slow starter so far. I think that might maybe, weigh in on the perception of this trade a little bit and, try and make it defensible one way or another for the people involved. But also, like, get your guys,
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, if we don't know until you have Zach or Mark Amont or the other Mark.
Great point. I'm so curious how this trade happened. Like, was there negotiation? How did it start? Who offered what? Was this Zach wanted? That's a great point, Mark. Did he want Witt? Did Michigan say I need Bichette? What happened here? I wonder.
Yeah,
we need clues.
But I mean, I don't think it's going to have serious implications this year. I think Kyle kind of opened my eyes in terms of the cost that it probably isn't going to have super.
They both have a keepable shortstop cornerstone type guy.
Yeah, but yeah. That's where I end on it.
Well, and then the big question mark is like, do you think Misigman knows that Bichette is not on the Yankees? Because or maybe there's a trade coming.
I was gonna say that probably he knows something we don't know. That's probably his answer. It's probably a Volpe straight up for a Bichette scenario in the AL East.
Could happen. Okay, very cool. So I
that's
think
all
that's
of our
trade. Yeah,
that's it.
A lot of stuff. This is definitely the most active we've seen this league, right?
Yeah, us giving that extra week in there is significant. So I will ask my co-host or my guest here. I have a voicemail from Zach Straley, not about that. It was prior to the trade happening, so we won't have any insight into that. But we can either do the voice message first and respond to Zach in the mailbag. We can play Would You Rather first. What are we thinking?
Go to the mailbag.
Yeah, let's do the mailbag. Fresh
I'm the guest. I want to go to the mailbag.
You want to hear Zach?
Yeah, I miss Zach. I haven't seen him in a really long time.
He left us a good message here.
What Sparky wants, Sparky gets. It's Zach time.
That's literally what Zach says in this voicemail, I think, too. All right, so this worked when Dom called in that one time. I'm literally going to put up to my mic here, just my phone playing it. Let me know quickly because it's like a minute and a half long. You can't hear it. We'll have to find some other way to play it. I can just read the transcript if I have to. But ideally, we can do it where you hear Zach.
Yep.
So sorry to disappoint. Didn't get a spicy one. Got a little maybe too turned up and the phone went in the pocket. Didn't come back after that. But all right, I got one for this week. First off, longtime friend, first time caller. Love the pod. And go O's. Fantasy season's been kind of maybe not a disaster, but maybe a little stressful for me. But the baseball season's been a blast so far. Thank you, Orioles. Thank you, Mario Mateo. And
First time friend, long time caller.
Sorry to disappoint. We didn't get a spicy one.
No.
We got a little, maybe too turned up in my team. I think it can apply to most people. When is it time to either panic because you're so behind in a certain category and like completely shift your strategy to like catch up in it, maybe for the detriment of others, like big detriment of others, or you're so behind that this isn't your year and you should be looking towards next year. Like I am last place against stolen bases, against strikeouts, and that's mostly because of say injuries here or there, maybe a little bad strategy, didn't quite get it. Bucher has no steals, O'Neill Cruz is out for pretty much the year, and then pitching, lost a lot of starting pitchers to begin the year. And when I look at it, I think those are two things I can get back in. I'm only like 8 stolen bases out of 6th place, so that seems doable if people start stealing. And I'm also last in innings pitched, which I think I can catch up in once other people slow down later in the year, so they don't get 200 starts because I have plenty of starts to go. Is this too optimistic, or should I be trading everything I have for strikeouts and steals so I can get back in that? But this could apply to anyone if you're buying home runs, hits, whatever.
And that is the actual end of it. I don't know why it did that weird play thing. That's not Zach's fault. My phone did that. So sorry, Zach, that it restarted you midway through. It replayed the first part of that again. But I think you guys heard it, right?
Basically, when is it?
When do you start panicking about a slow start?
Well, yes. So there's 2 parts to it. So, I think we'll hit on that. But I think the other part is just pursuing these trades to the detriment of others. Like
when do you start trying to make sure the others have detriment?
Yeah. What kind of detriment? No, I know what Zach is saying. Zach is saying, should I basically trade away, favorability in this category for, boosting up this other category that I'm not as strong in? And
even if I thought I'd be stronger early on.
Yeah. And Nick, I felt like you had some interesting points just in terms of historical standings. Not that you need to talk to anything specific, but I feel like we've all seen a trend. At this point, we're early, but we have enough sample size that we're starting to build out a base. And I think that's kind of the beginning to what I'm trying to answer here in terms of Zach's question.
Kyle's being really graceful. One of my homework assignments that I couldn't quite do for you guys this week was I was going to try to find historically at the end of April, in each year we played as a dynasty league, which is I think the last 5 years now, to see what changed at the standings from the end of the first month before the end of the season. Like, how is it really feasible to go from like 6th place to 1st place or 8th place to 2nd place? Can you actually make those jumps? When does a slow start become an actual thing you should panic about? Unfortunately, neither ESPN nor Fantrax allows me to do exactly what I would like to have done and seen day by day. So I had some records I was able to find. I found a couple of years where I believe 18, 19, 21, 22. So most of the last 5 years, and one of the last years we played before with the dynasty. Basically, the outcome was starting on May 1st or May 5th, I think was the latest I went, but basically the first week of May. So basically where we are now, if you are not within the top 4 or 5 teams in the standings, it's unlikely you can win. You can still finish 2nd or 3rd. That's happened a bunch of times, as recently as last year, actually. And actually last year, almost at the end of May, McTaggart still wasn't winning or even in 2nd place. McTaggart was 3rd place at the end of last May. So it's feasible if you're close to jump a couple spots. To finish in the money, to finish 2nd, 3rd, or 4th this year, you just basically can't be in the last spot or 2. So I'm not putting the death sentence on the couple guys at the bottom, but you have a week here maybe to get yourself out of the last spot or the second last spot to have a chance for the money. After the end of May, though, it really changes a lot. So I think what Zach is getting to, I want to try to tie these together here, is you need to decide basically when we talk about like the would you rathers we've done the last couple of weeks, or we talk about Bichette steals, what's real and what is just arbitrage. The first month it's been weird, what's just been odd. Bichette being 0 for 2 in steals with no steals is probably just odd, I would say. But we have talked about guys where we think things are real. Like if you have Matt Chapman, I think you really do have a guy who's broken out, missing one, for example. Matt Chapman is legitimately better now. Every batted ball stat says so. He's moved in the lineup, so his team believes he's real. That's a real thing that you should buy into. There are probably like Juan Soto, for example.
O'Neill Cruz that's real. He got injured. Like, not to like that.
That's
stinks.
a great example too.
It's just bad luck. Like, Zach built a great team, in my opinion, and yeah, that's a guy, and you're counting on stolen bases there. That no longer exists. So there's a void that you need to fill. Can you find the value on the waiver, or do you need to pursue other options? And I think that's what Zach's getting at.
Zach may even be also saying, take away the keeper thing we were talking about a second ago with the trade he made since he left that voicemail for us earlier this week.
Yeah.
He may be saying, look, Bichette and Witt aren't that different, but Witt's already got a handful of steals. So I know he's going to do it. And Mark made a point earlier that I think is valid, where I jokingly said like half an hour ago now that Vlad's got 2 more steals than Bichette. That won't stay, obviously. But the Blue Jays as a whole actually aren't running that much. Like, Whit Merrifield got traded there from the Royals in the last couple of years, he did run less. Springer has not run a ton relative to previous years. He ran some last year, but not like peak Springer running. So while I think it's unlikely Bichette's done running, there is a chance Bichette goes from like a 25 or 35 stolen base guy to, like, even with the new rules, he just runs less. He just decides I'm not going to run as much. It could be a team philosophy thing as they've changed. Springer didn't run so far this year much either. He's a couple steals, that's it. There's a non-zero chance that happens. And if you think they're similar players, maybe Zach thinks, hey, Witt, I know can do it. He's already doing it, even when he's not playing well. So
interesting.
I think that's a case where, not to go back to that trade in detail, but it makes sense to do what Zach did there, I think. The more I'm thinking about it now, because if you're last in steals, you need a guy who's stealing right now. And you're probably not taking a hit in anything other than maybe runs and RBIs from Witt to Bichette. I think that's a great example of picking something that's real out of what's happened so far, and actually is probably something to look at from moving forward. Think about like Yandy Diaz, for example. We talked about Jordan Walker's launch angle. Yandy's had a full month now hitting with a different launch angle. We'll get to him in a little bit here because he's someone we're going to talk about in the Would You Rathers. But, like, I think me and Kyle, excuse me, have both agreed previously that Yandy has changed himself in a way that is sustainable and probably will be a little bit different this year versus previous years. That is something you should probably buy into. Similarly, again, I said him briefly, Juan Soto might not be the top 10 hitter we thought he was this year. It's been a year now almost playing on the Padres with a higher ground ball rate and a higher out of the strike zone chase percentage. So for Zach's question, I think the answer, to summarize it real quick, is you got to find the things that you think are legitimate, and historically evidence changes. And you have to also decide what things are just small sample sizes.
Yeah, well said. I think, for Zach specifically, like, yeah, I think it's time to, maybe move some things around. I think he has a good team. Like, he's not out of it in any capacity. Drury's breaking out a little bit. Brandon Drury. I think he has, maybe 6 home runs. No. Yeah, 5 home runs. But
Zach seems in a good spot. But you made a great point about with O'Neal Cruz being hurt. That is something that is a real change. You can't control that. He's going to play very little this year. It sucks.
The point I'm trying to make is you can sell on some power if you want. If someone like Drury gets hot, you could try to sell and get some stolen bases. You could try to sell some pitching. That's probably what I would try to do personally. But yeah, you brought up interesting points too with just some of those guys who are saying, hey, these might be real changes. Yandy's a good one. Maybe we'll talk in more depth on that later. I was actually just flat out wrong about Yandy early in the season. I remember shooting you a text because he hit his first couple of homers of the season. I checked Savant. I said, oh, the launch angle is actually the exact same. And at that point it was. As the season has gone on, new launch angle. Like, for whatever reason, that's always been Yandy's issue. Like, he hits the ball harder than anyone and it just slams into the ground, just like old man Jordan Walker. But for whatever reason, he's figured it out. So I think he's a stud. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like we all kind of agree on Zach's question, but Mark, do you have any other thoughts? Anything additional?
No, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and repeat everything you guys said. We've been through enough at-bats, enough starts from pitchers now where the sample size is valuable enough that you can go in and say, I believe in this, or, this guy's K rate is up, point whatever, or the launch angle. I just think in terms of going to sell out for one specific category, you want to be careful in doing that. If you're dead last in average, other than, Luis Ariz, like, nobody really hits, and Kyle's favorite player. It's really hard to go out and say, I'm going to chase average in all of my deals for the next 2 weeks. And that's going to take me from last to top of the top of the order. I think it's more important to kind of try and find those guys that, you know, like, or I guess RBIs would be a better example. Chasing RBIs is tough, but finding that power guy, Rowdy Tellez, as a good example from one of the moves a few weeks ago, is someone I asked you about, Nick. Like, that's someone who he's going to hit for power, and he's in the middle of that Brewers lineup. You know, hopefully Yelich is getting on base in front of him, Adames, all that. That will help you build in the RBIs. I know speed, it's kind of different, but I just be careful about what you're going to chase. You know, wins incredibly hard to chase, you know, but also be mindful of, oh, this guy's on the Rays and they only let him go 5 innings. Like, probably not going to be where I want to get my quality starts when, you know, I'm dead last in quality starts. And the Rasmussen deal from earlier this year, Kyle, it's not been helpful. You know, they pulled him in Cincinnati when he was.
Yeah, Kyle, what the fuck?
No, it's just like, I guess my overall point is don't just lock in so hard and say, you know, I'm last in average. I got to go out and find guys who are hitting 300 or more, and that's going to turn it around, because the likelihood that they're going to continue to do that is not high, you know, unless, you know, top 25 hitter. But yeah, now is the time, I think, where now on May 15th, I think it's now you either got to decide, like, all right, I'm going to start trying to make some moves, you know, kind of mortgage the future and see if I can compete this year. And like Kyle said, I still think there are some teams that could try and make it happen. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks.
Mark Barton made the best point I think any of the three of us just made there, where he talked about like comparing RBIs or home runs to steals or wins to quality starts. These categories, while they all count the same for your totals, are not created equal because they impact each other differently. I think this is a great example of it. I think, again, the more I think about it, I love this trade even more than I leaned towards Zach, for Zach specifically here. I'm not saying overall value, but Witt is basically doing Bichette's stat line with a worse average, but a lot more steals. And that's what Zach currently needs. There's probably not a ton of downside in the way that, like, if we say, does Bichette hit more than 30 or 40 points higher than Witt the rest of the way, I would take the under on it being that significant. Same way I would say probably take the under on the steals too. But just in case it is, Zach's got an okay average base built right now and needs the steals, which are happening. I think as I've played fantasy more and more, I don't know what your guys' opinions on this are, but Mark makes a really good point too, where like steals versus like most of the pitching categories don't impact each other the same way. Like adding a bunch of relievers or a bunch of starters who pitch like basically Zach Greinke types, or like Adam Wainwright in previous years, guys who you know could even games. You can kind of target one category without potentially mortgaging the other ones. Steals versus every other hitting category is just so different in the sense that like it's not necessarily going to correlate. The best stolen base guys aren't usually even the best hitters. Like last year, John Birdie led the league in steals. John Birdie was not useful except for like July and August. He was kind of a net negative otherwise. Jorge Mateo, similar. Like to be good at steals specifically, I think you do have to kind of pivot and try to find guys when you can that are not that I think Bichette stops doing it, but there's a 10% chance Bichette's steals are lower, maybe 20 than you thought they were when the year started. And Witt is not a huge drop off, other than we think marginally, you know, runs and RBIs probably than Bichette. So go for it because you know you're getting the steals and you're not losing anything anywhere else. It makes the deal even smarter for me actually from Dak's perspective there. And I think it's something that I used to be a big fan of, like, nah, trust your guys forever. Like, but then you get to the years where like Joey Votto is hitting 210 in the end of May, and now he's literally worthless. You can't get out from under him. You have to just cut him. And you would have missed in previous years. You would have missed guys like Max Muncy. You would have missed guys like Adolis Garcia, who did not look like they should be breaking out. Kyle made a great point a second ago. Yandy Diaz's launch angle for the first 2 weeks actually wasn't that different. Now it is, and sometimes you have to be proactive to buy that lottery ticket to see what actually will change. Dre Jameson, teams can change, for example. Like the Rays are the best team in baseball right now. I didn't necessarily think they were anything more than a slightly above average offense when the year started. They're like leading baseball in runs or top 2 or 3 right now. So now I think Yandy's in a better run scoring environment than I thought. That probably is sort of real. Dre Jameson, we just talked about situations, everything there earlier.
Yeah.
I love Dre as a guy who comes in the 3rd inning or 4th inning behind an opener and pitches 5 innings, gets wins easily, and just dominates guys. As a starter, hitting games, that is a role thing that is huge. So things that I feel like we're not really giving Zach a great answer here because I think I said it perfectly, but you have to try to decide what is real and what's not. And team changes, skill set changes are real. Bichette sprint speed is the same. Bichette's historically the same stolen base guy, but there's a non-zero chance, the same way Machado went from 20 to 0 one year in steals, that like Bichette just decides this year. Maybe we hear in the offseason, Bichette had like a nagging calf or something, stopped running randomly. There's a non-zero chance. And with Witt in the acquisition there, it's a similar guy anyway. You're not really taking a huge risk. Like, I wouldn't say trade O'Neal Cruz on his keepable long-term prospect contract for John Birdie for steals. Yeah, I think you're giving him too much there just to get steals. But Zach's getting his steals without mortgaging the future.
So I think Mark said it best. Like, there are some categories that are more more fixable than others. So I think that's kind of the takeaway. I think, you know, we've hit a couple points. I think we can move on to another segment here. Do you guys want to talk waivers, or would you all like to play a game or two?
I
would the pick,
but it's up to you guys. I know you wanted to talk waivers too, Kyle. Were there one or two moves that you really wanted to highlight or name someone this week?
Let's do it.
Yeah,
let's not Griffin.
Yeah, let's. So
it can't be Griffin.
I was kind of bummed. I put in a $0 bid for Cano from the Orioles. So Nick picked him up for $1, and then I mean, he's been hot the whole year, but even since that pickup, I think he has 2 holds maybe. But I mean, he's just continued to be a stud. Like, what do you guys think about him? Like, are we just like, is he like the new Bautista? Like what's the deal? Because Bautista came out of nowhere. Like, I didn't even know.
Mark, you go ahead, because I obviously have an opinion. Like,
yeah.
Well, yours is the only one that's going to matter because I don't know anything about him. I haven't been following him, which shows why I'm in 10th place as of today. But I did see, I was looking at your team earlier, I saw he had a 0 ERA, I believe. And if he's getting holds the O's are good. He's getting holds, but I have not done a deep dive and seen any stats or anything. So I don't want to say like he is the next Bautista, but he could be, you know.
Yeah, Cano's interesting. Cano is someone they got from the Twins last year in the trade for Jorge Lopez, ironically. And Cano last year was abysmal. I think his ERA was over 9. Let me check real quick to make sure I'm not lying to you. Cano's ERA in the majors last year was, 9 with the Twins and 18 with the Orioles. To start this year, including today, April 30th, he has pitched 11 innings with 12 strikeouts, and he has not allowed a single base runner except for 1 hit by pitch. And he has the most movement on his changeup of horizontal movement, of anybody. Yeah. He's remade himself in a bunch of ways that time will tell if they're sustainable, but so far he's a different guy. And he's an exact example of low risk upside guy where if he blows up once, I'll cut him, but he could have just remade himself and it could be sustainable. It's kind of something where like you have to pick up like the Adolis Garcias in previous years, or the guy on the Mariners, this second base shortstop, Dylan Moore, the years he was good before he fell away. Guys, I'm trying to say guys who even don't necessarily have a reason to believe in them, but they're hot. Sometimes it's worth taking a shot. Because like Adolis Garcia has improved, but like he wasn't a hot guy to start out as far as like all his underlying stats. Yadier Cano's entire career to this point has not been overwhelming. He was not even the main piece in that trade for Jorge Lopez, who's not even a special player. So there's not a ton of pedigree there. He's 29, but it's a combination of the Orioles are better than we thought, and he is so far much better than we thought that I picked him up. And Kyle didn't want to bid $1 because he's very frugal. But I believe sometimes paying up for guys that are good.
Yeah, it just sucked because he had been producing for a while, and I looked at him several times on the waivers, and I was just like, okay, like I guess I'll just wait and see if this is real. And the day I decided to pull the trigger was the day I should have actually thrown some money down. So good pickup there. Another one that I wanted to highlight, I am breaking the rules. It was a Griffin pickup. It was actually a guy that I picked up a few days prior. I dropped him for someone else, but I think Jaron Duran, a little post hype here. Like I'm kicking myself because I'm still happy with the trade I made, but I wish I just cut one of the relief guys instead and kept Duran. Maybe try to spin a trade.
Duran's
out
guy I
of
was gonna highlight.
But geez, like Duran. Why don't you guys talk about him for a little bit, and I'll pull up his StatCast because he's
post hypey. He's great post hypey here.
Yeah,
a guy who's not great his first time around. He's like baby Jared Klenick, where he has pedigree, not quite the way Klenick did, but he had pedigree. Came up a couple times in the last 2 years. Wasn't great when he was up here. Wasn't terrible, but like wasn't good. And now it's like, oh, we've seen him fail, so he's not that appealing anymore. The shine's off of him. He's playing at a different level. Like Kyle's going to get his numbers off, but he has changed a little bit as far as how hard he's hitting the ball, the way he's hitting the ball, and he's producing also right now too.
Yeah, his max exit velocity is in the 84th percentile.
I think he's hit his hardest ball of his career this year so far. I think maybe his top 2 even.
So right now he's batting .396, which isn't sustainable. His expected batting average is much lower, but still at .286. So like above 250 for Duran, I think
Power
is
speed guy too.
really impressive. And yeah, he's one of the fastest guys in baseball. Like his sprint speed right now, it's showing as 87, but I know before I looked at that, it was much higher. So he's really fast. He's got that stolen base
Even
potential.
87 is like,
and I know
I believe the 87 is like his average. His peak sprint speed is higher than that. You're right.
Also, like, not that the theatrics really matter, but his first home run of the year was this huge grand slam. Yeah, I just feel like there's this, like, all of this coming in at one time for Duran. I just feel like it looks like a breakout, and
he's
looks
also
like
still only 25.
Yep.
Yeah, so it looks like it's real. But what do you think, Mark?
Yeah, actually, I had completely forgotten about this because I was just scouring the waiver wire. Those type guys, this was a conversation I had with Raymond just the other day about how those, no one's really a sleeper anymore just because of how there's so many podcasts. There's so, this podcast.
This podcast breaks a lot of guys, yeah.
No, but everyone knows about everyone now. We have the 2 minor league spots. It's very rare where, someone truly breaks out of nowhere. Now I think it's more popular to find those post hype, Jaron, he's been up and down multiple times, like you said. He's starting, the flashy grand slam. I had been thinking about it. I saw that. I was like, you know what? I'm going for it. I forget how much Griffin got him for it, but he beat me by maybe $5 or $6, and I was not happy. So pause on
the exact same day.
Griffin, you suck. I hate you. Back on. Great pickup. Wish I made it. I'm dumb. That's why you're in 4th, 3rd, whatever it is. Yeah. So good highlight there, Kyle.
Griffin is trolling us in the worst way ever because I think when the year started, me and Kyle had a top 3 in different orders, but that was me, McTaggart, and Griffin. And I think we both, in all seriousness, been critical of Griffin for selling off guys this year to just like tank in some ways, like for the future. Not necessarily tank, but like just try to play for the future. And if Griffin ends up finishing the money anyway, that is so annoying to me.
It really is. Yeah.
Like if he ends up not trying to win this year anyway and also still wins money, I'm gonna be so annoyed.
Well, also, so was he the team that? Yeah, so he sold away Juan Soto. So like maybe he was right about Juan Soto. Like I thought
that's one of my would you rather's will do. Yeah,
I thought that was complete garbage. But like looking back, like some of Griffin's moves, I think are looking a little better than I thought.
So you're back in on Griffin.
I'm always in on Griffin. All right. Yeah. So any other waivers, guys? Any other call-outs?
I would say I had that one written down. What's my other favorite one? Let me see. I had down a couple. I had you adding Torkelson. I know it's something we've already talked about a ton, so I don't want to talk too much about it, but I think Torkelson is playing better this year than he has in previous years, and a prospect who has failed but has the pedigree is the best thing generally. Yep. There's so many reasons to think a prospect won't linearly improve, and he's not been incredible, but he is showing signs that he's better than he's been before. So I think it's a great – I don't remember what you spent. I think it was like $100 probably. There's $0 bids. The money doesn't really matter, guys. Get a top prospect who's cut because there's a non-zero chance of being great. If not, Kyle just moved on. I think it was good for you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just hoping that it turns around. His expected stats are like slightly better.
They're much better than they were last year.
Yeah.
And again, he's a former top like 2 or 3 overall pick.
Number 1.
Yeah.
He was the number 1 pick.
He was top 2 or 3. I didn't lie to you.
All right. So next up, I think Nick, you have some games prepared. I also have a couple games.
Let's play one of yours, dude. I'm sorry. Let's do yours.
Yeah, I mean, so
you're always a good sport. I'll play the game against Mark.
Well, some of mine are just like they'll be really quick, and I think it's more just interesting and informational, and we might have like a $5 chat from it. So kind of less like goofy in terms of different information, but I'm just sticking with Statcast here. So max exit velocity. If you just had to guess, things have shifted a little bit since the last time we played this game. And I know we have less than a minute here, so just think about it a little bit, and we'll probably have to hop on another call. But I was just curious if you guys could name or guess the top 5 players in max exit velocity.
Mark, really guess you go first.
Matt
Unless you want me to go first.
I'd say one of the top 5 is probably Matt Chapman, the way he's hitting the ball right now.
Great guess. That's actually not. He's not in the top 10, which I was shocked about.
This is average Kyle or highest overall ball?
Max.
Max. Okay, the highest
Max
max
exit
EV.
velocity. Yeah, I think average. Chapman's probably the number one in average.
So who's hit the top 5 hardest balls this year?
Yeah, max exit velocity.
But
I mean, Chapman is still a great guess for that. I
We
was
could all
surprised.
trade. Yeah, that's why I clarified. I think I thought it was what you thought, Mark. Do you want to go again? You want me to go?
Sorry, guys.
No, you go. I don't know who.
Stanton, before you got hurt, I know probably is one of them. Hopefully. Mark, do it.
I'm having fun.
Ooh, fun time.
There's our open.
So,
all right. So I'm gonna guess Stanton would be a good guess, but I'm gonna not do Stanton because I know he probably doesn't. And so I'm gonna say O'Neal Cruz.
Ooh, that's another great guess. He's actually in the top like 12, I think, but he's not in the top 5. So how about we take one more guess from both of you guys, and then I'll read off the top 10 that I wrote down.
We each get 3 strikes.
There's some big names, and then there's some random ones. Like, it's not fully a trick, is my point.
Give me Jose Ramirez.
Jose Ramirez. That's another great guess. He's not on there. Any other guesses?
There was one more.
Give me Aaron Judge.
That's another one I was really surprised about. He's like in the top 20, but not in the top 10.
Last one for me. Is Shohei on that top 5?
Oh yeah. He's
good guess.
He's number 4, which is just absurd because
Vlad Jr. is my last one.
I was looking at some pitching stats today, and look, there's an argument that maybe Ohtani is off to the best start of any pitcher. Like I'd put like Garrett Cole in the list.
Garrett Cole's the only one definitely better. Strider, McClanahan, there's a few other ones.
Bingo. Yes, Strider, Cole, like McClanahan, sure, but like Ohtani's in that tier basically. It's pretty wild. Joe Ryan is off to a great start, but let's go ahead. I can read these off if you guys are ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
So number 1 is Matt Olson. Number 2.
Oh, that's a good one.
Jake Berger, Vladdy Daddy. Mark got Ohtani.
I got Vlad.
4. You said Vlad?
I said Vlad. Oh, did you hear me, Mark? Mm-hmm. I said it like as Mark said his last one. Yeah, I was like Vlad.
Oh, my bad.
But whatever. Mark wins. Sorry, Mark. You win 1-0. Good job.
Yeah, so number 5 is a fun one. Jock Peterson.
I like that.
Jordan Alvarez, Springer, Acuna, Adolis Garcia, Wilson Contreras. And it's also
Adolis is a great one I would not have gotten.
I would never have gotten that one either.
Adolis has actually gotten better this year than any year of the last 3. He's real.
It's disturbing. Like I was so out on him this year. He's one of those guys who I thought got lucky twice in a row.
The last 3 years I've said that. I'm wrong. That's my point earlier. Like you have to just, even if you don't necessarily believe, find out.
You're right. So I think Acuna is especially interesting. Not that this is unexpected. Acuna always Acuna's. But
it's true.
The thing that's just wild about him is, first of all, he's stealing bases left and right. Does he still lead baseball?
As of today, yeah.
So he leads baseball, top 10 in max exit velocity, and I believe he's number 2 in expected batting average behind my guy, Arise.
He's cut his Ks down a little bit, yeah.
He's basically just Mr. Everything. So, and
his power's down slightly.
Under $35. So pretty wild player for next team. Cool. Yeah. So that's I have a couple other ones, but really that was the big one.
Let's do one more,
and we can play some other games. Why don't we jump over to your side, Nick?
No, I want to do one more of yours. I like playing the games.
Okay.
Let's do one more, Kyle, and then I'll do my game.
Let's see.
Or if you're not ready for it, I can just go.
Yeah, I don't have my phone ready.
That's fine. Okay,
I'll go written down.
So I've got. Do you guys want to do my game, like the more silly one with the is this a person or is it this? Or do you want to do the would you rather's?
Up to Mark. Mark's the guest.
Let's do would you rather's and get silly after that.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you rather here? Rest of season, our format. Nico Horner for second base shortstop, Thairo Estrada for second base shortstop, or Jose Altuve for second base shortstop. Rank them 1 to 3. Take a second to think about it, of course.
Estrada, Horner, or Altuve?
Altuve.
Oh.
Because I have a feeling I can tell what all 3 of us have said when the year started. I have a feeling I can tell you what we're going to say now. It's going to be different. I don't know if we're going to agree now. We're going to say different things about it.
That's a really good one, Nick. Yeah.
I could foresee us all having a different answer.
I kind of hope we do. I think I try to pick one here that is up to interpretation a lot. Mm-hmm. How reactive are you, basically?
Yeah, I'm pretty torn. Are you asking me to go first?
It's up to you and Mark.
Okay.
Let's do you first. Go. You go first. I'll do Mark next.
Tough one. So I actually have two of these players.
That's why they're on here. Don't worry.
So Altuve is my number one still. I think he's actually in a different tier. The problem is Estrada and Horner are both off to just blazing white hot starts. So Estrada is a guy that
he's like Adelise or Dylan Moore.
He is. I was pretty low on him going into the year. I ended up getting him in a trade with Brendan when I picked up Urias.
Yep.
And he was just part of it. It just helped things.
No, he was the guy you were targeting.
But it has worked out in my favor quite a bit just with Estrada having a career year in San Fran. So I like him in that he's my player. I think he has 8 or 9 stolen bases. He also is, hitting for power now, which I don't think we've really seen out of Estrada like this. His expected batting average, I think, is also still maybe above 300, which is pretty impressive.
It's higher than anyone would have guessed.
So I like Estrada a lot. With all this said, I think Horner might be a more legit player. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, Altuve, Horner, and Estrada.
Okay. That's not quite correct. Mark, what do you want to guess?
Yeah, Kyle, you're wrong. Although I don't think we're gonna have the same answer, Nick. I am all in on Nico Horner, and have been. For me, it's 1 Horner, 2 Altuve, 3 Estrada.
Wow.
And that Estrada and Altuve, I love Estrada too. I had him last year. The dude is just continued to hit. He steals bases, but going back to Horner, I think it's a real breakout. I got him when he first came up, I think back when we were still on ESPN. And I thought the hit tool was legit. He made good contact. He got on base. He stole some bases back then, but he's really started. I mean, this year, I think it's his breakout. He was someone I was targeting in the offseason. I just didn't have a chance to get him. And I think he's here to stay. So yeah, I think for me, it's Horner, Altuve, Estrada, and Estrada and Altuve aren't as far apart as people might think, or at least for me. I don't want to completely put down Estrada because I also think he's a really good player. And yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
This is infuriating because Mark is wrong, but Mark is wrong because he said we would disagree. I have the exact same opinion, basically. I won't say too much about it. Other than that, Nico Horner, even take the keeper stuff out of it. Nico Horner is in the 100th percentile in strikeout rate. He's a former first-round pick. He's only 25. The Cubs locked him up. I think he is the cherry-picked perfect example of a guy who went from okay steals to he is taking advantage right now of the new stolen base rules. We talked earlier tonight about what is sustainable. Deciding to run more is sustainable, I think. I hope it's not in the case of Bichette not running more, something that saves forever, but I think choosing to run more shows you can do it. And he has good sprint speed. He is in the 100th percentile, though, the top 0.1% of people for K rate and swing and miss rate. He's like Nick Madrigal with some power. He already has a couple home runs. Nick Madrigal came up like Luis Arias before he had any home runs. He's like a better version of that, I think. So he's actually my one. Mark was correct about that. Altuve, I think, is a 0.75 tier, not quite a full tier, but a little bit below that. And I think probably Estrada is like half a tier below Altuve. But I think the slightly higher separation is Horner from the other two for me. And that's crazy because I don't think Altuve has changed my opinion at all. I think Altuve is so safe. He's my favorite one of them as far as like, if you told me like they all played like their bottom third outcome, Altuve is my favorite. But I do think Horner's is real. And Estrada is too, just to make sure I'm not like burying him. I think he's good. I think he's better than Dylan Moore, but he's doing kind of Dylan Moore things.
Mm-hmm.
You guys ready to move on?
Yeah, let's hit the next one.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're at third base. Rest of season. Yandy Diaz, Patrick Wisdom, Manny Machado.
Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, you go first, I guess, Mark. I mean, Kyle go first last time. Take a second if you want. You don't have to go immediately. Think about it.
I mean, I think just off the hip, it's Machado, Yandy, Wisdom. I think Kyle, we talked briefly on Wisdom earlier. I don't think I really jumped in much on the conversation, but he's the definition of streaky. I think Kyle bought him at the exact right time, sold him at the exact right time. I know he's hit maybe like 4 or 5 more home runs since then. I don't foresee it sticking. I think you hit it right on the nail. So he hit the nail right on the head. He's going to stay at 3 for me. Machado, I know it's been a slow start. I know it hasn't looked great this year, but the dude is, he's as consistent as they've been. The only years he's been bad, he blew out his knee twice in Baltimore. Like the first time he did it, running to first base, and then came back, was good, and blew out his knee again. And soft analysis stuff here, just signed the big contract. I don't know if that's something that, whenever someone goes somewhere new, signs the big contract. I know he's been in San Diego for a couple of years, but maybe that's, he's pressing a little bit. He's trying to really show that he's worth the 350, whatever it was. It's hard to bet against someone who finished second in the NL MVP voting last year. Potential future Hall of Famer. So he stays 1 for me. And then Yandy, like we talked about, the darling of Blanche Angle, he's finally starting to figure it out and raise it into. I mean, we've been talking about Yandy for 5 or 6 years. If he could just raise his launch angle, he would be elite. And it's, the breakout's finally here, and it seems like it's here to stay. So, rest of season, I still think Machado, but I think a case could be made for Yandy depending on where you're at.
Kyle?
I think Mark said it perfectly. I won't add too much. I agree with the ranking. I have the same intuition. With the Manny stuff, like the Soto performance just scared me a lot more than Manny Machado has. So I'm willing to keep this lineup. I probably don't have a great answer for you, to be honest, but I have looked at a lot of the expected stats. I think Soto's is a lot worse. I've heard just kind of rumblings, and this is not like really hardcore stuff, just people saying that the pitch clock has messed with Soto quite a bit.
I've seen that too, yeah.
I think that might be kind of a legit story, more so than a Machado. So yeah, I think that there's some serious adjustments that need to be made for Soto. I don't think Machado has been unlucky. I think the expected stats has shown that he has actually performed poorly. But I kind of chalk it up right now, and maybe I'll be proven wrong because Yandy's hot. I chalk it up to just, he needs to get the ball rolling, and he'll figure it out. I think Mark said it perfectly that we've seen Machado. Like, we have the Machado sample size. He's never been bad, really, like this. So I still believe in him. Wisdom, I think, is just a completely different tier. He's like a really good streamer. He's not with these guys, in my opinion.
So Machado right now is in the bottom 15% of baseball in expected on base, expected weighted on base. He's in the bottom 25 in expected batting average, bottom 25 in expected slugging, bottom half in hard hit, bottom quarter in walk rate, top half of the league in strikeout rate, chasing at the highest rate of his entire career by almost a standard deviation.
Wow.
And he is the slowest he's ever been too, even when he stole 0 bases, even though there's 2 so far. I was hoping you guys might do that. To me, this is still Machado, but I do this one because I think they're all in the same tier, kind of. Like Machado, we drafted today, and it was like a redraft thing. I'd probably take a third of the 4th round. I think the same way I talk about Jordan Walker can raise his launch angle. And Wisdom's a little bit lower for me, just to be clear. I'm saying Yandy, I believe, has gone from a top 120 guy to the 75th to 60th guy.
Yeah.
And I think Machado has gone down to a 50th overall player to me, maybe the 60th.
I think this is mostly a Yandy story. I agree with you completely on Yandy.
But you guys are burying Wisdom in a way I wouldn't. Sorry to interrupt. I think Wisdom is more. If Yandy suddenly goes cold, the Rays have so many guys in the platoon, and Yandy will stop playing every day. He could have a bad month, and even if we don't think he's actually bad now, it's just bad outcomes.
Yeah.
The Rays might stop playing him every day because they've done that before. Wisdom, I think, on the Cubs will play every day. And if you said which one of the 3 hits the most home runs, it might be Wisdom. I actually believe that. So I think Wisdom is not so far behind the rest of them. I think Wisdom is someone who's a blind spot for me when the year started, but right now is probably close to a top 100 player.
Wow. Okay.
No, I do believe that. And I think Machado is down outside the top 3 or 4 rounds. I think Yandy's somewhere between them.
Interesting.
But we all agree on the order, which is the only part. I was hoping someone would fight me on that. So that's not as much fun if we all agree, but we do kind of there. Sounds like I made them closer, though, so that's a little bit interesting, I guess.
I think so. Yeah, I think a lot. And those are interesting points. I agree completely on the Yandy stuff. I'm just a little less fearful, maybe for kind of dumb reasons.
Yandy's non-prospect Jordan Walker. Jordan Walker was
Yeah.
his 12-game hit streak. It's so exciting. If Yandy goes 0 for his next 24, he doesn't play every day,
But
even though I love him.
I don't think he's really ever done that, has he? He's always been.
He could have a bad week and a half. That I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying the same way
He's always been.
If the team reacts, if a good team stops playing him lead off every day, it changes my value of him though.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
But I think also it wouldn't shock me if he wins.
I think the wisdom point's interesting too. Mark, what do you think about that? Do you think he's?
I mean, yeah, I get where you're starting to get at with Yandy not really ever going cold like that, but it has been known to happen in Tampa. You know, Isak Paredes, Taylor Walls, and I know they got rid of G-Man Choi, but I'm pretty sure they brought in someone else.
They have a bunch of prospects who come up.
Kyle Manzardo's waiting in the wings to get his crack at it. I don't think it's completely unreal to say he might go over 24 and sit for a week, but I also think on the spectrum, any one of those guys could have that. If he hits the cold streak, someone comes in. I think it's also, Taylor Walls, it goes on his cold streak and Yanni's right back in there and he's figured it out. Sometimes you're just not seeing the ball well. So I don't necessarily know if that's enough to scare me away from it. Yeah, the wisdom thing. I'm still with you, Kyle. Like, wisdom might prove me wrong, but even if he hits 30, 35 home runs, I still think it's no more than like a 220 average. And yeah, I don't see it, and I don't want any part of that.
It's interesting. It sounds like basically we mostly disagree because I'm saying there's some risk to Yandy, but also there's a lot of upside to Yandy. Like, I could see Yandy finish ahead of Machado, very reasonably. I think it could happen if Machado doesn't start producing until like the middle of the year. But like wisdom, I think when we talk about we did the Kyle exercise where it was like peak exit velocity, max exit EV versus average. I think the highest end of it is more important to me generally, and wisdom's in the top 2% of baseball in that. And wisdom's walking at a slightly higher rate so far, and walk to strikeout rate does usually sustain sooner than anything else.
Sorry,
his hard hit rate is higher too.
Just to restate, you're saying he's at the top of the average exit velocity, isn't that right?
Yes, but I'm also saying his hard hit rate.
Gotcha.
Consistently being in the hard hit rate is in the top 1%. So he's both hitting the ball harder with more authority regularly, and he's also doing it more often. And he's in the top 75%. He's at 76 there in a max EV, which is his hardest of all of his career is this year. Right. I feel like he might be discount Max Muncy because he's 30 or 31, and he's playing in a situation where I wasn't really looking for him. Didn't think he especially strikes out too much. But if he starts walking at anywhere near a Muncy type clip, I do think he could actually, on a team where he's not likely to get kicked out of his at-bats on the Cubs. I highlighted the Yandy point. If he goes cold for 3 weeks, they might stop playing him every day or stop leading off at least. I think Wisdom's pretty safe in that lineup, and he's already got way more home runs than either one of them right now. So I don't think – I bring it up to say Wisdom's not nothing. It sounds like you guys both kind of are out on Wisdom still. I hated him when the year started, but he's changed a little bit in my opinion, where I think he's useful.
Interesting. Cool. That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do shortstops.
Let's hit it.
Kyle, you're up first here. Take a second to think about it. But Jorge Mateo, Tommy Edman, Jeremy Pena. Who's your favorite? Who's second? Who's third?
Yeah. I could potentially have a blind spot on Edman, but I am pretty low on him compared to consensus. So rest of season, right?
Yep.
Yeah. This might be a wild take, and maybe you guys have some interesting Orioles thoughts, but I'm gonna go Mateo, Pena, and Edman at third. I think Mateo's changed quite a bit. His hit tool is different. He is, I think, 99th percentile in speed. I think maybe he and Corbin Carroll, they might be the two fastest players in baseball. Bobby Witt's up there too, but I think he's a different player. Honestly, this is a little wild. My concern is that he's going to be traded away with all of the talent in Baltimore. They're going to just try to figure out, okay, what do we do with Jorge Mateo? Does someone want Jorge Mateo? If another team actually has interest, to me, that's actually the big asterisk next to him. It's actually not the fact that his name is Jorge Mateo, because I feel like going into this year, I did not care about him at all. But he looks like a top 100 player. And if you look at all the stat cast and everything in the background, it all seems to support that it's for real. Interested to know if you guys feel differently. I'll let you guys get to your rankings.
So you said, just to clarify, Mateo and who was second?
Pena
second,
and then
okay.
Edmund last. Yeah.
Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I hate to disagree and give the same take, but my order's the same. Mateo, if you told me at the start of the year, it would not be that. It probably would have been Edmund, Pena, Mateo. In all honesty, now
The opposite, right?
Yeah, I've always been a fan of Edmund, and I don't think ranking him third is saying that he's completely fallen off a cliff. It's just playing in, again, it goes back to playing in St. Louis. It's like Tampa Bay. You've got so many mouths to feed. And if you're not hitting well, plus I think something that Edmund relied on that really set him apart was the speed originally. And now Mateo had 40 stolen bases last year, or 50?
He was in the 30s, yeah. He was high.
Yeah. He's running like crazy now, and he's got the hit tool to back it up. The plate discipline has been better. I remember the second week when he was, like the best player in fantasy. I was like, that's not
sample.
Right. And I know, talking to my dad, I think just about everybody in the league sent some sort of trade offer for him.
Not me.
Oh, there you go. But I feel like Pena is getting lost in here. Pena, as of today, is the second ranked shortstop in fantasy. 6 home runs, 6 stolen bases, playing in Houston with, Tucker, Alvarez, all that. I really do believe in Mateo, but I think it's a lot closer between Mateo and Pena, like 1A, 1B, and then Edmund is bringing up the rear.
So your order is the same, but you think the tiers are different?
Yes, yeah, that's where I would say the difference lies for me.
I'm curious to know what Nick thinks, but one quick addition on Pena, and I'll fact check myself here, but I think like 90% of that productivity has come in like the past week or so. Like Pena was looking really slow to start the season. He was hitting, I think.
I screen grabbed his StatCast stuff, including for today's game.
Okay.
I have it up in front of me right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's terrible. It's worse than Edmund.
Yeah.
And he still is playing. Mark said his stats correctly, his actual stats. He's not been very good, expected stats wise. It's funny though, you both make a good point. He is in the safest position because Mateo, with all the infield prospects the Orioles have, and him probably not being in the future, is probably most likely to get traded.
Yep.
And so Mark made a great point, I agree, where like Edmund is the Jordan Walker thing, where even if you're playing fine at like an average player level, if you suddenly go into a cold streak, you might lose your job. And it wouldn't shock me at all, even though you've been good before. I think for me, I hate overreacting, but I feel like I am maybe more reactive than Kyle the more we do these things. And it sounds like Mark is probably in between us a little bit. I would take Mateo first, and I really wish I wouldn't, because I feel like it's probably the riskiest, like the highest range of outcomes.
Yeah.
But I think with all 3 of them, since some of them are like the highest tier of player, that's still what I want, even though I'm embracing the fact there's a 50-50 chance he burns out. Yeah. And then after that, I would take also Pena and then Edmund, which is wild because Edmund has been better for the careers by a lot.
Yeah.
I know Pena's only played a year and a half. It's fine. But also Pena's 25, no two are both 27. Mateo's only 27. Mateo could be an MVP candidate if he just stays on the team and doesn't stop. And the Orioles are taking notice because they're starting to hit him 3rd or 4th or 5th. Yeah. Last 3 or 4 days, he's finally hitting outside the 8th or 9th spot. Like it is, like if he doesn't stop doing this and the Orioles buy in, and like I'm not an Orioles front office guy, but if the Orioles trade like Ortiz and Westberg to get Shane Bieber or something at the deadline, suddenly there's no one knocking on the door immediately behind him. He has a job, like then it's easily Mateo for me. So this one sucks if we all kind of agree again. Tiers are a little bit different, but I think it's Mateo, Pena, just because even when he's not doing great, he's still incredible in the Astros lineup. And then Edmund, I fear actually is most likely to lose the gig. And by gig, I just mean everyday playing time. All right. Hopefully we disagree soon. I like when we disagree more. The first one was the best one. First baseman, Ty France, Carlos Santana, Rowdy Tellez, 1 through 3. I think Mark is up this time.
Yeah, I'll go first. Admittedly, there's a blind spot for Carlos Santana. I don't know what he's been doing this year, so I'm gonna be, you'll see me peeking over to the side.
Do you want me to give you some context before you answer?
Yeah, I would love if you have.
I'd rather just have context. If you don't know, it's fine. I appreciate you saying it.
Yeah, please do, because I've not been following him at all this year. I own Ty France, so I know that's why.
That's why he's in here. Yeah.
And then I've been tracking Rowdy a little bit because I've been playing him.
Statcast is in the middle for Santana, so nothing crazy. He's performing at a slightly higher level you probably would expect. His stats are, let me pull them up as it loads. Never mind, I can't help you. My computer's spinning.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer it. You know, rest of season, our league, I want Rowdy Tellez. I know we've talked about it before or you guys have talked about it before. I haven't been part of this conversation. You know, the Brewers aren't married to him. He could, you know, he runs into one of those cold streaks, he could be gone, and you know, maybe they try out Weimer at first, or when they shift someone somewhere. But just right now, and he's also started to come on over the last couple of weeks. I think he's got.
Once he got away from Dom, Dom was cancer to him.
He's got the best situation. I love Ty France. This is probably the third or fourth year that I had him last year. Didn't want to keep him for, I think it might have been like $22 or $24. Cut him and was able to get him back for cheaper, and I was ecstatic. Got off to a super hot start. He's cooled down. He doesn't do anything incredibly well, but he usually doesn't kill me in any one area.
He's probably in the best lineup.
And I was going to say he's in a great situation in Seattle. I think they've been batting in 3 or 4. He might have moved him down recently, but you know, you got Julio there. But I think just looking at the way where my team is at and you know what I would need, I would take Rowdy, Ty France, Carlos Santana.
Kyle, what do you think?
I'm not passionate between the 1 and 2. I also I'm just copying Spark again, I guess, but I would go Tellez, France, and Santana in third. I'm not passionate about 1 and 2. I think for me, the premium goes to the power. And I think all of Mark's points are completely valid and actually likely for Tellez. All of that could happen. So even with those risks in mind, for me, toss up a little bit, but I'll go power and put Tellez at 1. And Santana, actually, dude, that's a blind spot for me too. So isn't he like 35 years old? Like
he's 37.
He's
okay.
old.
So Santana's interesting because he's hitting cleanup. He's hit cleanup all but like 3 days this year that he's played. The Pirates are almost as good as the other offenses so far. So it might be something worth changing. That's why he's in here. His StatCast and expected stats and most of his actual stats are very similar to Ty France, which is why I put him in here.
Both guys don't do
anything awesome.
Like I want to hear, Nick, if you disagree, but I'm not really convinced beyond Reynolds for the Pirates, like what they're doing on offense. Like, is there a lot of compelling?
Sawinski is good. Sawinski's good. And it's interesting without O'Neill Cruz doing it.
Right.
Obviously, they're going to regress. They're not a top like 5 team in baseball. They're in the top half of the league. But I think it is legitimate that they are, instead of being like the 29th offense out of 30, they're probably like 15th.
Got it. Yeah.
And having the everyday and the Mariners are probably also, that's why I picked again their everyday cleanup hitter for both teams, Ty France and Santana here. Ty France is a decade younger almost. So I think I prefer him ever so slightly. I think they're on the same tier. That's why I did this one. I think I also lean Rowdy, but I think it's just because I think power is harder to find than average. I think the 2 are better batting than average favorites. I think Ty France is the safest.
Yes.
Because Rowdy, while I think he's my favorite, you guys both kind of hit it already. If he goes in a cold streak, they might stop playing against lefties. The Brewers are probably the most likely to give him fewer at-bats, but I think he's my favorite too. So this sucks. We agree on like all of these.
Hey,
you motherfucker, you gotta like change up a little bit.
Those are some good ones though.
Let's do outfielders. I have 4 outfielders here. And these are stars. I've done some that are stars, some that aren't stars. These are stars. So we're drafting in today. Mike Trout, Juan Soto, Jordan Alvarez, and Randy Arozarena. Who are you taking? Take a second. It's 4 guys too. But Kyle, you're first whenever you're ready. Unless Mark wants to go. We can just go out of order too.
Kyle can go first.
Wow, that's a hard one. So Randy Arozarena is off to a blazing start. If you look at the StatCast information, he's hitting harder. He's hitting harder than he ever has. Now, yeah, that's such a tough one. Wow. To me, Arozarena is a little bit. He's a tier above, significantly a tier above, like Adolis Garcia. But to me, he's similar in that I actually had Randy last year, but I'm not a big fan of Arozarena historically. Like I've always found his performance to slightly exceed what he is supposed to do. And so he gets lucky. This year, that really hasn't been the story from my perspective. He's played quite well. So to me, he's the biggest riser in this group where
why he's here.
I'm adjusting a little bit. And the flip side of that story for me is Soto is the biggest faller. So I will go. It's tough from a keeper perspective. Things change around a little bit with Jordan and Trout. That's a toss up for me, and that's tough. The injury concerns for Jordan
Jordan's
also.
hurt right now a little bit too. Yeah.
I'm a little concerned about that. So if we're going rest of season, I'm just gonna say Trout, Jordan, Arozarena, then Soto. But again, I don't feel passionate about the 1 and 2 there. It's a toss up with the injury. I think Trout and Jordan will both be phenomenal. Arozarena, again, big riser for me.
Just to probe you, so Arozarena is now like a second round pick value, and Soto's like a late second or an early third, or where you putting them?
I don't know. This is all like happening live, right? Like I'm not exactly sure what's going on.
This is not scripted, guys. Yeah.
I'm
For all
not,
you watching, this is live. Yeah.
No, I guess what I'm trying to say is with Soto, like I'm learning on the fly. Like for me, I was pretty high on him. I was really frustrated that I didn't get him at like, $52 or whatever. But yeah, like I don't really know what to think, honestly. I think he's a couple of tiers lower at this point. Like this is a real issue. I think best case scenario, Soto gets traded to like the Angels or something in like an Ohtani deal, and maybe just the new scenery helps him. But like I don't really know what else could really help him out unless the approach changes entirely. To answer your question, yeah, Soto. I don't know what round. I really just do the.
Sorry, that was putting you on the spot. I was just curious
Yeah.
if you had a rough idea. That's fine.
I mostly do like the auction stuff. I'm only in this league for baseball, so.
Yeah. So you would say Soto's probably like 30-40, and Randy's now like 45-50, and then the other two are like 55-60?
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Mark, what do you think?
That's tough because, like you said, this one is the first one with legitimate 4 stars. Kyle touched on it. There's no numbers to back this up, but Arozarena to me has always just kind of been like vibes. He's that World Series,
older rookie,
that playoff run. He always, every time you turn the TV on, he was up. It was the big moment, and he delivered. And I think that really, really helped him, not just baseball wise, but kind of inflated him. Part of the big trade for Libator and Arozarena, they were the cornerstones in that trade. I know that the stats and all the statcasts are starting to say it's legit and it's here to stay. But what Soto was doing, when he came up in Washington, and when
he was on my team,
when he was on your team, so go get him again, so he can.
I can fix this.
Type hitter again, because I'm not ready to give up on that. I know that he's hitting the ball into the ground. He's chasing. It's not what you would expect from him. Also, I know we talked a lot about Soto today, but no one has brought it up. That oblique could be playing a bigger part of what it happened like 10 days before spring training ended, and other guys with obliques are out for 2 or 3 weeks, and he played opening day, if I'm not mistaken, or he played the second day. I don't love that that's where I'm falling, that like, hey, he needs to just get healthy, either put him on the IL, or it could be an all the way till the All-Star break type of thing. But I just think that the talent's too good to put him last. But rest of the season, I know Jordan's been battling some stuff, and I know Trout's been lighting it up, but I think Trout's yearly IL stint is coming. Again, it's not super analytical here, but I just think, Jordan's going to continue to DH every day, and he will hit 40 home runs, over 100 RBIs, maybe sneak you a steal or two, but doubtful. And hopefully all of his injury stuff will be out of the way, and he just, pencil him in every day to hit. So I think for me, it would be Jordan 1, Trout 2, but that's literally just, where I'm at today looking at it. Soto 3 and Arozarena 4, but if we redrafted today and I had a shot at any of them, I'm not upset. That's just looking at it on May 1st. That's where I'm at.
I got what I wanted here. None of us agree. This is wonderful. Take all the costs out of it. I'm taking Randy second to Trout. I'm doing Trout, Randy, Jordan, Soto. Okay. And honestly, the closest delineation there is Trout and Randy. I'd almost take Randy first. Randy's going to steal the most bases. He's probably in the best offense based on the first month of the year. So if I know he's probably going to be the most likely to win runs and RBIs and also going to win steals and has been good every year we've seen him for 3 years now, I'm kind of in. Trout, Mark's right. He's probably more likely than anybody other than Jordan to go on the IL, but he hasn't yet. So he's still my favorite just because his expected stats are the best they've ever been. He probably won't steal, but I could see him chipping a few more steals, and I could see either of Jordan or maybe even Soto chipping. Soto, I'm concerned about, but I want to be really clear that Soto can still figure it out and be fine. Like, he's a generational prospect. That's why I did these 4 because they're all really fucking good. Like,
what if Soto is just Carlos Correa?
Well, what if Soto is like a lot of guys who come up and the league adjusts and they don't adjust back? It's not actually that uncommon.
Yeah.
That he just goes from like one of the best players in baseball to like an above average player. Remember Cody Bellinger? Remember Christian Yelich, who were even older when this happened in the last like 5 years? Like, it does happen.
Bellinger might have something to say about that, honestly.
Bellinger's a little bit back now, yeah. But fine, once Soto comes back at 30, we'll be like, oh, nice, he's back, sick. Like, I'm not saying it's what's going to happen here. I'm just saying I picked these 4 specifically because it's mostly about Soto. And Mark's right. I'm glad Mark mentioned the quad. I think he could be hurt. But also, when they're in the similar tier anyway, I'm not going to assume the guy's going to get better. Like with Machado versus Wisdom and Yandy, he's a tier or 2 or even 3 above them when the year starts. So I'll defer a little bit to the track record some more. Here, the first 3 were in a tier, and then Randy was like a tier behind them when the year started. Or maybe there were similar values if they weren't in the same tier. So I'm not going to give Soto any breaks here. Soto's last for me. And I do think the closest thing for me is Trout and Randy. Jordan might be the best if I know he's going to play every day, but I don't know that.
Yep.
And the Astros are a worse lineup than I thought they were too. Altuve's going back, but they'll improve. But I'm really in on the Rays. I think it's kind of what I'm figuring out as we talk about it. I've got one more for pitchers. We have a minute left. Let's jump here to the last commercial, come back to pitchers, then we'll do my quick little game, and I'll let you guys go.
Perfect. Cool. Let's do it.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Let's wrap up here with pitchers. Rest of season here. Zach Wheeler, Christian Javier, Jesus Luzardo, Justin Steele.
Oof. Okay, can you say them one more time? Sorry.
Yep. Zach Wheeler, Christian Javier, Jesus Luzardo, Justin Steele.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna take a second. I'm trying to do rapid round here, but these are some good ones, Nick.
Yeah, I guess you would be up first, but Mark, if you want to go first, or if you want to take a second too, take a minute.
I'm ready.
All right, you go first then.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Okay, I'll go Zach Wheeler, Javier, Steele, and then Luzardo. But that's a tough one. I'm not very confident in my Steele guess.
Mark?
Yeah, so disagreement here. I have Luzardo number 1.
Wow.
Actually, I'm sorry. Wheeler, Luzardo. Yeah.
Okay, still.
To me, we talked about Wheeler earlier. I think he's better. I know he's not started out super hot this year, but he's still throwing hard. Just needs to find the plate a little bit more, and he'll be all right. And started super slow last year and turned it on to be one of the best pitchers in the league for more than the second half of the year. So I'm not worried about that. The track record is there. I would want Wheeler number 1. I actually tried to go and get him before McTaggart was able to get him from Team Miz. But Oni, as the Javier and Luzardo owner, I actually value Luzardo more than Javier if we were to redraft it today, but also just in terms of our keepers. I think Luzardo broke out last year. He got hurt in the middle of the year, but then came back and he was averaging, sitting at 97, throwing harder than that. He was striking guys out at like a 12 point something K per 9. It was elite. He's had a couple rough outings here, but to start the year, he was on fire. He's still throwing 97 or higher. The wins aren't necessarily going to be there in Miami. But as long as he stays healthy, I do think he is a top 20 pitcher, in my opinion. Javier is right there behind him. He's not striking guys out the way he was last year, which is frustrating because He was a dark horse AL Cy Young candidate for me going into the year. Based on the postseason run they had last year and what he did in regular season. And then I was looking at Steele all off season. I thought he might break out. I think he got roughed up one or two of his early outings, and I kind of fell out on him. But the fact that he's on Nick's list here, I have a feeling he's turned it around. But I think he's still fourth for me just for the rest of the year.
You guys know who owns Steele?
Probably you.
I did.
Kyle, who is it? Yeah.
Kyle.
I don't know any of them, but I like to have it be you guys. So you probably know the place pretty well. I think it's Zach Wheeler. So we agree all in one. I think Luzardo is my 2. I think Steele is my 3 and Javier is my 4, which is crazy to me because Javier was like almost Zach Wheeler when the year started to me. I'm just super in on both Luzardo and Steele. But to be clear, also, I think it's Wheeler in his own tier, even though he's been bad so far. That's kind of a red herring, in my opinion. For you guys, I was hoping someone would take him lower. He's still my 1. But I think it's Luzardo and then like a half tier where the other 2 are together. Like, I don't think Javier is bad. Javier's still a top 100 pick for me. I just also think Steele would be too. Like, I think Steele's like a top 10 round pick for me. He's really been good. Javier is a little bit concerning too because he's like expected to raise like almost 5. It's been rough.
Yeah. To me, Steele looks like the year that Trevor Rogers had when he was really good. Steele has a really weird fastball. It's one of the best spin rates. I think it's only like 82nd percentile if you look at it at StatCast. But if you dig into it, like there's a lot of just wonky data that like people are putting out about Steele. So I think it's just a little bit of a breakout and he could be good. But I think you guys are definitely convincing me on Luzardo. One issue that
Luzardo is my 2, yeah. He's awesome.
One issue that I have with my pitchers is that I really try to dig into them and spin them in trades to create value for this year and for next year. So I have this bias whenever I'm kind of ranking in my mind. We're talking rest of season, but Steele was undrafted. So in my mind, I kind of just rank him differently, but that's not
Pitchers changed the most, though, I think. Pitchers changed the most quickly. Strider last year.
Yeah.
Cortez last year.
My goal is to get those guys, and then I want them next year. And
I think Luzardo and Steele are 2 of them.
So Luzardo, like I think is slightly more expensive because I think Mark was keyed in on him. But I agree. Like if I had to choose straight up, I would have Luzardo over Steele for rest of season. I think when we just start talking about the auction and then keeper values, things get a little bit more complex. Obviously, Javier is like $48, so that's a throwaway in my opinion. But I'm actually still quite a bit higher on Javier than you guys for this year, particularly.
I'm not trying to knock Javier a ton either, by the way. I think he's a top 100 player. Javier's expected ERA last year was like under 2.5. He was really fucking good. And he's probably on the best team I trust. So this is not like necessarily I'm burying him. It's just I thought he was like, I don't know, like the 60th, 70th pick when the year started. Now I think he's like 100th. And it's more for me, Steele is real. Luzardo is very real.
Yeah.
And I'm not really out on Wheeler at all.
Agreed.
Which it sounds like a mess. I agree with you.
That's
also a really good tweet. This is in 2018. Breaking news here. 2018. It's a quote about Manny Machado when he was in the Dodgers, his running speed. It's from Yasiel Puig. You guys remember Yasiel Puig?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So when he was in the Dodgers with Machado in 2018, here's a quote he gave where he mentioned himself and then he mentioned Chris Taylor twice. So let me read it to you. I want your thoughts. So Puig discussing Machado. He's playing amazing, Puig said. I mean, he's giving everything that he has. He runs, and it looks like he could run harder, like he's going 80%, but he's not fast. He's not a fast boy like Chris Taylor, Puig, Taylor, somebody like that. He's hitting ground balls and running the best that he can with what he has.
I'd love to have him on the show. It sounds like he's an analyst at heart. Is he still playing overseas?
Yeah, he's not a fast boy like Chris Taylor, Puig, Taylor, somebody like that. He named Chris Taylor himself and then Chris Taylor again. And those were his only examples.
What the hell? Yeah,
what the hell?
It sounds like yeah. It sounds like he had a little bit to drink or something.
So here was also a quote when Paul Goldschmidt was traded. Paul Goldschmidt was a really great Diamondback for a few years before he got traded to the Cardinals. And here's a quote for the Cardinals GM or the Diamondbacks GM when that trade happened. What was your reaction to the trade? Talking to the manager of the Diamondbacks. In a word, this is bittersweet. It's well known that Goldschmidt is a very fine young man. I made a comment about him yesterday that I had made previously, and it's this. He's a great ball player, but even a better human being. That should be almost mathematically impossible, but somehow it is true.
Oh,
Because Goldschmidt is like a top 1% baseball player. So how is he a better human being?
wow. Well, we're getting into our feelings in Arizona. Like the Diamondbacks are like oh, we're gonna miss Paul so much. He's such a great guy. Like that's such an odd thing to say. There were a lot of weird quotes. You know, the NFL draft just took place. I feel like there were so many weird moments. Did you guys see how Goodell got up on stage and he's like, "Yeah, so sorry for your loss. Like now, smile for the picture." And it was for all of the families who suffered the loss from the UVA shooting that targeted the football players.
It was weird. It was it was a nice idea.
Goodell was just like the biggest creep about it. So it sounds like Goodell needs to take a trip to Arizona, like open up his heart a little bit. Maybe talk to the old GM from the Diamondbacks and just start learning about like life and who the good people are. Maybe have coffee with Paul Goldschmidt because Goldie's such a nice guy.
Exactly. And a
really
better guy than his ball player.
Yeah.
So, and the last one I've got here, we talked about Yennier Cano earlier and his amazing start. He's not put a hit or a walk on in his first 12 innings. Natalie Feliz, former closer and reliever on different teams.
That's a throwback.
Natalie Feliz was on the Rangers to start his career. Guess how many no-hitters he had against the Mariners specifically to start his career in appearances. So how many innings he went before he allowed a single hit to the Mariners?
How many innings?
Yeah.
20.
It might not be a good number.
Okay.
3.
Okay. So this is from 2019 here. Feliz was facing off with the Rangers as they hosted the Mariners. Entering the game.
You're cracking yourself up.
I am. The Mariners at this point had not recorded a hit in 48 at-bats against Natalie Feliz. Justin Smoke finally broke the no-hitter drought with 2 outs in the 4th inning. According to Elias Sports, those 58 at-bats before allowing a hit is the longest streak ever to start a career in the expansion era. The previous record was held by Billy Wagner, who held the Pittsburgh Pirates hit list in their first 48 at-bats from 96 to 2001.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
I'm loving these throwback backs. Awesome.
Here's a hot take. So it was okay when he was 29, about 4 years ago. Once he turns 30, we have to call Sonny Gray by his first name, Son.
Wait, what? What are we doing?
Where are these tweets coming from?
Is that his real name? His name's Son? Son Gray.
Let's play our last game.
What
Yeah.
the fuck?
Let's do Kyle's MVP.
All right. So I'm gonna name.
No.
I'm sorry. Let's do MVPs. That's fine.
Let's do Kyle's MVP, and then I gotta call it.
All right. So to end the show today, we're all going to pick an MVP. I think it would be fun to start this each episode. The MVP can be different. Maybe you had a good week. Maybe you met a new friend like Paul Goldschmidt. So, think outside of the box here. But typically the MVP will be a league mate that we're playing against who had a really good week, maybe a riser in the ranks. It could also be a player in fantasy football or fantasy baseball. Sorry. So you guys, or football. Clearly that's top of mind. So you guys go ahead. I do have one, but if anything hits for you guys.
To me, it's Charlie Brown. He has climbed the most over the last week or so. And I actually like Charlie's team a lot coming out in the way that I think Charlie is somebody when everybody's selling could contend for like one of the money spots. I think he seems pretty solid. He climbed from last or second to last, I think at our last recording to now he's in the middle of the pack. And when I look at my opinions on the teams overall, I still think he's in the top half. So Uncle Raymond, rough start, dig yourself up by your bootstraps. You have a chance.
Wow. Charlie was mine too.
What?
Yeah, Charlie was mine. So this is what I wrote down. Week MVP, Charlie Brown. Bellinger has had a resurgence so far this year. Buxton has started hitting dingers. He hasn't been running.
Polanco's back.
But then if you check the stats, Buxton is still like top 99th percentile in speed. He's gonna get
Michael
those
Harris
bags.
back.
So Harris is back. Mitch Haniger is back. Robbie Ray's out for the season. He needs Verlander to get healthy. but Charlie Brown is looking dangerous. Dangerous
with
with a
you.
capital D, Charlie. Dangerous. So yeah, Mark, what do you think?
Mark, what do you like about Charlie Brown's team?
Well, that's not my MVP. Great
Okay.
work this Charlie, but called a little bit of nepotism. Papa Spark gets the MVP this week. Talking about
Different boomer.
Papa Spark.
I had gone home early in April when he was in the basement hanging out with the bottom dwellers, and I was just giving it to him. You know, why bother? You know, this. I was legitimately kind of mean. He had shut me up. His team. I mean, Nick, I can't remember his last podcast or 2 podcasts ago. He's just so methodical about checking it every single day.
I said that. I gave him that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He'll make it up. He'll come back.
Yeah, I'm calling back to that quote. He checks it every single day, which is more than, you know, in past is more than you can say about me. He never has the flashy guy, the new hot prospect, but I just feel like he's always tuned in to, you know, this guy is coming back, or this guy's like Brent Rooker, you know, just a throwaway ad, and he hit another home run today. And all the Patrick Wisdom talk, that's where he's been hanging out all day.
Adolis Garcia.
Yeah, Adolis Garcia, who we mentioned numerous times today. He's up to 6 today, had another great day. You know, do I think overtake and win the whole thing? No. Finish in the money, that would be my vote today.
He's got a real shot.
Yeah,
he gets my MVP vote.
Jack's island of misfit toys are looking
exactly
really good.
Yeah.
So do you guys remember that ad where Papa John was like really sweaty during it?
I thought it was a regular video where he was just eating like 17 Papa John's pizzas.
No, it's where he said he ate all the pizzas. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
the Papa's been sweating bullets for other reasons, but I don't remember an ad.
So if you remember the video, I guess it was not an ad. It was a video we was talking about, like he ate all the pizza or whatever. He's wearing a red shirt in that. What do you think that red shirt says in the shirt pocket area?
Papa.
Is it Papa John or is it something else?
Got Papa?
It actually says Jeff Baseball.
Ooh. And
so it's important to share in a podcast about baseball.
I'd love to have Jeff on the pod. Jeff.
All right.
Well, thanks for joining us, Mark.
Any other call outs, current events, guys? A high or low? And anything stand out on the week?
Mark, where can we find you? Where can we send everybody to follow your work?
To follow my work. No, I've gone underground. Don't. No, in all seriousness, no. You know, if you want to make a trade, if you know, you hit me up. I check the thing. If you don't have my phone number, feel free to hit me up on the Fantrax app. I look at it. I'll see it. Yeah, no, I love this. You guys are doing a great job.
Thanks for joining us too.
I think it's been tremendous for our league. I think it is only going to continue to be impactful. Nick, I know we talked. I wonder which one of your takes today was the zigzag take. If you remember our text conversation.
They literally all were.
Yeah. No, you're doing great. Keep it up. Can't wait to see who comes on and just absolutely crushes my episode and does a so much better job. But yeah, thanks for having me on, boys, and best of luck to both of you in the rest of the season.
Now we crush you guys. Thank you so much, Kyle. Mark, really love you joining us. Can't wait to have you back on.
Adios.
Kyle, I love you.